Have you ever imagined what it would be like if one of the most powerful objects in the magical world fell into the wrong hands? An artifact capable of revealing every movement, every secret, every person inside Hogwarts, including you. Today, we're going to dive into the complete history of the Marauder's map, from its creation to the most crucial moments that changed the destiny of the wizarding world. And I guarantee what you're about to discover in the next few minutes will make you see Harry Potter in a completely different way. Get ready, because this story has betrayal, friendship, dark secrets, and an ending that few know about. Before we begin this epic journey, if you enjoy stories from the magical universe told with depth and all the details, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos, and tell me here in the comments, from which city are you watching this video? Let's create a community of true connoisseurs of magic. Now yes, let's begin our story. And it begins long before Harry Potter was born. In a time when Hogwarts lived through dark days, but 4 students were about to create something extraordinary. It was a cold autumn night in the mid-70s. Inside the Gryffindor dormitory, 4 boys conspired under the dim light of their wands. James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew were not ordinary students. They called themselves the Marauders, and they had an ambitious goal to map every inch of Hogwarts, including secret passages that not even the professors knew about. But why create a map? The answer lies with Remus Lupin. Every month, when the full moon rose in the sky, Remus transformed into a werewolf. It was a terrifying, painful, and extremely dangerous condition. Dumbledore had allowed Remus to study at Hogwarts, something unprecedented, but with one condition. He needed to isolate himself during transformations. For this, the Whomping Willow was planted on the school grounds, with a secret tunnel leading to the Shrieking Shack in Hogsmeade, where Remus spent his full moon nights. Remus's 3 friends discovered his secret in their second year. Instead of rejecting or fearing him, they did something extraordinary. They decided to become illegal animagi to keep their friend company during transformations. James became a stag, Sirius a large dog, and Peter a rat. This dedication shows the depth of friendship among the Marauders, a friendship that would be tested in unimaginable ways in the future. With their animal forms, the Marauders began to explore Hogwarts in a way no student had done before. They discovered secret passages, hidden rooms, corridors that changed location, and secrets the school had kept for centuries. James, with his brilliant intelligence in spells, led the explorations. Sirius, rebellious and bold, always pushed the group beyond limits. Remus, despite his cautious nature, had vast knowledge of dark magic that would prove essential. And Peter, often underestimated, had a peculiar ability to squeeze into tiny spaces in rat form, discovering passages others couldn't reach. The creation of the Marauder's map took years of meticulous work. It wasn't just an ordinary map, it was a masterpiece of magic. The Marauders needed to master extremely advanced spells. They studied mapping magic, revealing spells, protection enchantments, and human detection magic. The parchment itself was enchanted with multiple overlapping spells. The first and most impressive was the homunculus charm, an incredibly complex magic that allowed the map to detect and show the exact location of every person within Hogwarts boundaries. This spell was so advanced that even experienced adult wizards would have difficulty executing it. But the Marauders were not ordinary students. James Potter, particularly, had a natural aptitude for spells that rivaled the best students Hogwarts had ever seen. The map was also enchanted with sophisticated protection spells. The Marauders knew that if the map fell into the wrong hands, especially some professor or caretaker Argus Filch, it would be confiscated immediately. So they created a brilliant security system. The map would only be revealed to those who said the right words. To activate the map, it was necessary to touch the parchment with a wand and say, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." Only then would lines of ink begin to spread across the paper, forming the complete layout of Hogwarts with all its secrets. When someone tried to read the map without using the correct words, the parchment responded with insults. This wasn't just adolescent fun, it was an additional layer of protection. If a professor grabbed the parchment and tried to examine it, they would see only a blank piece of parchment. And if they insisted, the map itself would insult them, making it seem like it was just a worthless student prank. Minerva McGonagall and Severus Snape years later would experience exactly this when trying to decipher the map. Each of the Marauders contributed their expertise to the map. James Potter, who signed as Prongs due to his stag form, was the master of spells and transfiguration. Sirius Black, known as Padfoot because of his dog form, had an instinctive understanding of protective magic, something ironic considering which family he came from. Remus Lupin, Moony, contributed with his vast knowledge of magical creatures and defensive magic learned by necessity due to his condition. And Peter Pettigrew, Wormtail, helped with his attention to detail and his ability to explore spaces others couldn't reach. The map revealed 7 secret passages leading out of Hogwarts. The first was the tunnel under the Whomping Willow that led to the Shrieking Shack. The second was a passage behind a hunchbacked witch statue on the 3rd floor, which led directly to the cellar of Honeydukes in Hogsmeade. There were also passages on the 4th floor, one of them behind a mirror. Another began on the 5th floor and exited somewhere in the outskirts of Hogsmeade. The Marauders meticulously documented each of these routes, including how to access them and what precautions to take. During their years at Hogwarts, the Marauders used the map extensively. They sneaked out of the castle at night, visited Hogsmeade when it wasn't allowed, avoided professors and Filch with impressive ease, and generally caused the kind of chaos that made their names remembered for decades. James and Sirius were particularly known for their mischief, and the map was their most valuable tool. But it wasn't all fun and games. The Marauders lived during Voldemort's first reign, a dark time when the wizarding world was plunged into terror. Students from Muggle-born families disappeared. There were rumors of attacks inside Hogwarts itself, and tension was palpable. The map, in this context, also served as a safety tool, allowing the Marauders to monitor suspicious movements inside the castle. The rivalry between the Marauders and Severus Snape also marked these years. Snape, a brilliant Slytherin student in potions and dark magic, was constantly the target of James and Sirius's pranks. He suspected Remus, trying to discover his secret. There was a particularly dangerous incident when Sirius, in a moment of terrible recklessness, told Snape how to get past the Whomping Willow during the full moon. Snape almost encountered Remus in werewolf form, which would have resulted in death or transformation. James intervened at the last moment, saving Snape, but the emotional damage and broken trust left permanent scars. Eventually, as happens with all students, the time came for the Marauders to leave Hogwarts. But the map remained, a testament to their ingenuity and the adventures they shared. The question was, what to do with it? At some point during their final year or shortly after graduation, the map was confiscated. The exact circumstances were never fully clarified, but Argus Filch, the grumpy caretaker who dedicated his life to catching rule-breaking students, managed to get his hands on the map. It was his greatest achievement, definitive proof of the Marauders' mischief. He filed the map in his office, in a special drawer dedicated to particularly interesting confiscated items, but Filch never managed to make the map work. He stared at the blank parchment with frustration, turning it, shaking it, even yelling at it. The map, true to its creator's personality, only insulted him when he tried to force it to reveal its secrets. For Filch, it was a bitter reminder that even after confiscating the object, the Marauders were still laughing at him. Years passed. James Potter married Lily Evans, despite her initially not being able to stand his arrogance. Sirius Black became Harry Potter's godfather. Remus Lupin struggled to find employment, as his werewolf condition made it almost impossible to get stable work in the wizarding world. And Peter Pettigrew, the weakest of the group, was consumed by growing fear as Voldemort gained power. Then came tragedy. Peter betrayed James and Lily, revealing their location to Voldemort. On the night of October 31st, 1981, Voldemort murdered James and Lily Potter. Harry survived, becoming the only known wizard to survive the killing curse. Sirius was falsely accused of betraying the Potters and murdering Peter, who faked his own death. Sirius was thrown into Azkaban without trial. Remus was left alone, carrying the pain of losing all his friends at once. The map remained forgotten in Filch's drawer for years, silently waiting for its next chapter. This next chapter began with Fred and George Weasley. It was their first year at Hogwarts, 1989. The twins, already known for their mischievous spirit and sharp intelligence, quickly established their reputation as the greatest troublemakers since the Marauders. It was almost as if it were destiny that the map would find its way to them. The story of how Fred and George got the map is one of Hogwarts legends. According to George, they had just entered Hogwarts and were exploring the castle, looking for mischief to make and rules to break, when they had a disagreement with Filch. The caretaker caught them trying to access a secret passage and dragged them to his office for punishment. While Filch grumpily prepared the documentation to detain them, Fred saw a drawer labeled "Confiscated and Highly Dangerous Items." It was irresistible. While George distracted Filch with innocent questions and complaints, Fred discreetly opened the drawer and grabbed the old parchment that was on top. They had no idea what it was. They just knew that if Filch considered something dangerous, it was probably worth having. It took time for the twins to figure out how the map worked. They tried different spells, words, and enchantments. It was only when Fred, in frustration, said something like, "Come on, show us your secrets, you useless piece of parchment," that the map responded with an insult. This caught their attention. If the parchment could respond, there was magic in it. When the map revealed itself to Fred and George for the first time, they were speechless. It was more than either of them could have imagined. Every corridor, every room, every secret passage was mapped. And even more impressive, small dots with names moving through the castle, showing where each person was at that exact moment. It was the ultimate map of chaos, and it was now in the hands of the most talented troublemakers of their generation. The Weasley twins used the map during their years at Hogwarts. They memorized the secret passages, learned the professor's movement patterns, and used this knowledge to build an empire of mischief. But Fred and George also recognized that the map had a greater purpose. They saw it as something that should be passed on to someone who really needed it, and that someone was Harry Potter. It was December, in Harry's third year at Hogwarts. Sirius Black had escaped from Azkaban and was supposedly hunting Harry. The castle was on high alert, with Dementors patrolling the grounds. Harry, frustrated at not being able to visit Hogsmeade with his friends because he didn't have permission signed by the Dursleys, was having a particularly difficult year. Fred and George watched their brother Ron and Harry carefully. They knew Harry had a special gift for getting into impossible situations, and that he frequently needed extra resources to survive. Besides, the twins were in their 6th year and would soon be leaving Hogwarts. It was time to pass the map on. One night before Christmas break, Fred and George called Harry to an empty corridor. With a conspiratorial smile, they presented the parchment. They explained how to activate it, how to clear it by saying "mischief managed," and showed some of the most useful secret passages, particularly the one leading to Honeydukes in Hogsmeade. It was an early Christmas present, and possibly the most valuable gift Harry had received, besides his invisibility cloak. Harry was amazed. The map opened infinite possibilities. He could visit Hogsmeade without permission, he could monitor suspicious movements, he could avoid Snape in the corridors. But the map would also bring shocking revelations that would change everything Harry thought he knew. The first time Harry used the map to go to Hogsmeade was exciting and terrifying. He sneaked through the passage behind the hunchbacked witch statue, emerging in the cellar of Honeydukes. Ron, who was in Hogsmeade legitimately, was shocked to see Harry. Together they explored the village, and Harry finally experienced the freedom his classmates enjoyed. But the map also put Harry in danger. After secretly returning from Hogsmeade, Snape surprised Harry and confiscated the suspicious parchment he was carrying. Always suspicious of Harry, Snape examined the object carefully. To his eyes, it appeared to be just a blank piece of parchment. Suspicious that there was magic hidden there, he touched his wand to the paper and demanded it reveal its secrets. At that moment, the map reacted the way the Marauders had planned. Instead of showing information, insults appeared mocking Snape, signed by the nicknames of his old school enemies, Prongs, Padfoot, Moony, and Wormtail. Snape's anger was immediate. He recognized the names and bitterly remembered his school days. Furious, he called Professor Remus Lupin, who that year taught defense against the dark arts, to analyze the parchment. Lupin, upon seeing the map, immediately recognized the Marauders' creation, but couldn't reveal the truth in front of Snape. He pretended to examine it calmly and declared it was nothing more than a simple piece of joke magic made only to insult whoever tried to use it. Snape wasn't satisfied, but had no proof to contest. So he let Lupin take the parchment, which was officially confiscated from Harry. The conversation between Lupin and Harry after that was charged with unexpressed emotion. Lupin knew exactly what the map was and how much danger it represented. He also felt a pang of pain, seeing his youthful creation again, a physical reminder of lost friends and happier times. He eventually returned the map to Harry, but warned severely about the dangers of using it, especially with Sirius Black supposedly hunting Harry. What no one knew yet was that the map was about to reveal the most shocking secret of all. It was a night at the end of the school year. Harry was consulting the map, as he frequently did now, kind of out of habit. He liked seeing where people were. It was comforting in a way. But this night, he saw something impossible. A name that shouldn't be there, that couldn't be there. Peter Pettigrew was on the map, right in the Gryffindor dormitory, along with Ron. Harry froze. Peter Pettigrew was dead. Dead for 12 years. Supposedly murdered by Sirius Black, along with 12 muggles. But there was his name, clear as day, moving on the map. Harry called Ron, who initially thought Harry was joking, or that the map was malfunctioning. But when they looked together, the name was still there. The truth was terrifying. Peter Pettigrew was alive, and he had been with Ron all along, in the form of Scabbers, Ron's pet rat. Peter had been an illegal animagus, a rat, and had hidden as the Weasley family's pet for 12 years. He had witnessed everything, heard everything, waited and hidden while Sirius rotted in Azkaban for crimes Peter had committed. This revelation from the map led to one of the most dramatic nights in Hogwarts history. In the Shrieking Shack, the truth finally came out. Sirius Black and Remus Lupin confronted Peter Pettigrew. The real story was told. Peter had been the secret keeper, not Sirius. Peter had betrayed James and Lily. Peter Pettigrew had blown up the street full of muggles and cut off his own finger to fake his death. And Peter had let Sirius take the blame for everything. The map had done what the Marauders could never have predicted. It had exposed the betrayal within their own group. Peter Pettigrew, whom they had included in their creation, who had his nickname inscribed on the map as a creator, was revealed by the very map he helped create. The irony was painful and perfect. Unfortunately, Peter escaped that night. The full moon rose. Remus transformed without having taken his potion, and in the confusion, Peter fled again. He would eventually find his way back to Voldemort, helping to resurrect him. But the map had done its part. The truth was exposed. Even if complete justice had not yet been achieved, the map continued to be a vital tool for Harry in the following years. During his 4th year, when the Triwizard Tournament brought danger and intrigue to Hogwarts, Harry used the map to monitor suspicious movements. He noticed Barty Crouch Sr. appearing in the castle when he should have been at home, a crucial clue that something was wrong, although Harry didn't know how to fully interpret it at the time. It was also through the map that Harry noticed strange things happening. He saw Barty Crouch Jr. disguised as Alastor Moody, moving through the castle at strange hours. If Harry had paid more attention or shared these observations with someone who could connect the dots, perhaps Voldemort's plan would have been discovered sooner. During Harry's 5th year, when Dolores Umbridge took control of Hogwarts as High Inquisitor, the map became more important than ever. Harry was leading Dumbledore's army, a secret group of students learning real defense against the dark arts, something Umbridge had forbidden. The map allowed them to monitor Umbridge's location and her inquisitorial squad, scheduling meetings when it was safe and avoiding detection. But the map had limitations. It couldn't show the Room of Requirement where Dumbledore's army met. The Room of Requirement was protected by ancient magic that even the Marauders hadn't been able to fully penetrate. The map showed only an empty corridor where the room should be. This was one of the few flaws in the Marauders' creation, but considering the complexity of the Room of Requirement's magic, it was understandable. During his 6th year, Harry had less direct use of the map, but still consulted it. It was during this year that he became obsessed with Draco Malfoy, convinced that Malfoy was a Death Eater carrying out some sinister mission. Harry spent hours watching Malfoy's dot on the map, following his movements, trying to figure out what he was doing. And it was because of the map that Harry noticed something strange. Malfoy frequently disappeared from the map for hours. Harry couldn't understand where Malfoy was going. The answer, of course, was the Room of Requirement. Malfoy was using the room in its form as the Room of Hidden Things to repair a vanishing cabinet, part of the Death Eater's plan to invade Hogwarts. The map, despite its powerful magic, couldn't reveal this specific secret. On the night Dumbledore died, Harry had left the Marauder's map with Gryffindor classmates who used it to watch the surroundings of the Room of Requirement. When the Death Eaters broke through the defenses and invaded Hogwarts, the parchment became a silent reflection of chaos. Dots with known names moved in frantic patterns through the corridors, professors and students colliding with invaders in quick, deadly battles. Each movement recorded on the map was mute proof of the darkness spreading through the castle. It was one of the darkest nights in Hogwarts history, and although the map couldn't intervene, it recorded everything, as a magical testimony to Dumbledore's fall and the beginning of a new era of fear. In Harry's 7th year, he wasn't at Hogwarts. He, Ron and Hermione were hunting Horcruxes, trying to destroy pieces of Voldemort's soul to make him mortal again. The map remained at Hogwarts, and eventually found its way to Neville Longbottom, who was leading the resistance against Amicus and Electo Carrow, the Death Eaters that Snape had installed as professors. For Neville and the remaining members of Dumbledore's army, the map was essential for survival. They used it to avoid the Carrows, to know when it was safe to leave the Room of Requirement, and to coordinate their acts of resistance. The map, created decades earlier for adolescent mischief, was now being used in a real war, helping to protect students from torture and death. The Battle of Hogwarts was the map's defining moment. When Voldemort and his Death Eaters attacked the school, the map would have shown absolute chaos, hundreds of dots moving in frantic patterns, battles happening in every corridor, people dying and disappearing from the map as they were killed. Fred Weasley, one of those who had given the map to Harry, died in that battle. His name would have disappeared from the map at the moment of his death, a dot silently extinguished amid the chaos. Harry used the map during the battle to move strategically through the castle. He consulted it to find allies, avoid large groups of Death Eaters, and search for Voldemort. It was a tool of war now, no longer an aid for mischief, and it proved its worth countless times that terrible night. After the battle, after Voldemort was finally defeated, the map's fate became an interesting question. Harry had used the map for years, trusted it, was saved by it, but he also knew the danger it represented. An object that could track anyone's location at Hogwarts was too powerful to leave in the wild. Eventually, Harry kept the map but stored it safely. It was a relic of his father and his father's friends, a physical connection to James Potter that Harry had few of. The map represented the ingenuity, loyalty, and yes, the mischievous spirit that defined the Marauders. It was also a reminder of the sacrifices made, the friendships betrayed and defended, and the long shadow the past casts over the present. Years later, when Harry became head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and eventually when his own children went to Hogwarts, the map remained an object of profound significance. Harry occasionally wondered if he should give the map to his children, particularly James Sirius, who inherited much of his grandfather's mischievous spirit. But he also knew the danger and responsibility that came with such power. The Marauder's map wasn't just a piece of enchanted parchment. It was a testament to the friendship between four boys who became some of the most notable wizards of their generation, for better and worse. James Potter, who died defending his family. Sirius Black, who spent 12 years in Azkaban for a crime he didn't commit and died fighting in the battle against Voldemort. Remus Lupin, who overcame prejudice and discrimination to become one of the greatest defense against the dark arts teachers Hogwarts had ever seen, and who died in the Battle of Hogwarts alongside his wife Tonks. And Peter Pettigrew, who betrayed everything the Marauders stood for, but whose life was finally taken by his own silver hand when he showed a moment of hesitation in killing Harry. The map recorded decades of Hogwarts history. It saw generations of students grow up and leave, saw professors arrive and depart, witnessed romances blooming in the corridors, students sneaking out after curfew, professors making night rounds, saw moments of pure joy and absolute terror. Each dot on the map represented a life, a story, a journey through the ancient halls of Hogwarts. The map also represents the dual nature of magic. All magic can be used for good or evil, depending on the intentions of those who use it. The Marauders created the map primarily for harmless mischief and to help Remus during his transformations. Fred and George used it for their own elaborate pranks and eventually passed it to Harry when he needed it. Harry used it to survive, to protect friends, to fight in a war. But in the wrong hands, the map could have been a tool of terrible oppression, allowing constant surveillance and total invasion of privacy. One of the map's most fascinating features is its ability to detect people even when they're under disguise or transformation. The map showed Barty Crouch Jr. even when he was using Polyjuice Potion to look like Alastair Moody. It showed Peter Pettigrew even in his animagus rat form. This means the homunculus charm used by the Marauders doesn't detect physical appearance or form, but something more fundamental, perhaps the magical essence or the person's soul. This is incredibly advanced magic, operating on principles that even experienced adult wizards would have difficulty replicating. The mechanics of how the map updates in real time is another fascinating mystery. The Marauders created a system that continuously tracked and updated the location of hundreds of people simultaneously, all through pure magic. The parchment had to be constantly running detection spells, processing information. The ink used in the map was also special. It had to be able to appear and disappear, form precise lines representing the castle's layout, and create small dots with legible names that moved smoothly across the parchment. The Marauders probably made the ink themselves, infusing it with the necessary magical properties. It wasn't ordinary ink you would buy in Hogsmeade or Diagon Alley. It was customized, created specifically for this purpose. The parchment itself also had to be special. Normal parchment would deteriorate over time, especially considering how much the map was folded, unfolded, carried in pockets, and generally used over decades. But the Marauders' map remained in perfectly legible condition from its creation in the 70s until Harry's time in the 90s and beyond. The Marauders must have enchanted the parchment with preservation spells, water protection, and perhaps even self-repair. One of the most exciting parts of the map are the insults it produces when someone tries to force it to reveal its secrets without using the correct words. These insults aren't random, they're personalized to each of the Marauders. When Snape tried to examine the map, he received specific insults that reflected the animosity the Marauders felt toward him. The map called Snape greasy-nosed, mocked his appearance and personality, insults that were clearly personal and vindictive. This means the Marauders had programmed the map to recognize specific people and respond accordingly. It wasn't just a generic response to unauthorized access attempts. The map had some level of consciousness, or at least pattern recognition, sophisticated enough to identify who was trying to use it and personalize its response. This is incredibly advanced magic. Imagining the Marauders creating these responses is both funny and sad. They sat together, probably in the Gryffindor dormitory late at night, creating insults for each person they thought might try to examine the map. Snape was obviously at the top of the list, Filch certainly too. Probably McGonagall, though with more respectful insults. Maybe even Dumbledore, though the map never had a chance to use them. They were teenage boys having fun, with no idea how these little programs would resonate decades later. One of the most fascinating questions is what happened to the map after the Battle of Hogwarts. Harry kept it, but does it still work? Is the magic created by the Marauders still intact decades later? Does the map still show Hogwarts with perfect accuracy, or has the magic begun to fail, leaving empty or imprecise parts? And if Harry eventually gave the map to one of his children, how did they use it? James Sirius Potter, named after his grandfather and godfather, would certainly have appreciated the map. He had the mischievous personality the relic deserved. But Harry, having seen so much evil come from secrets and surveillance, would he have given such power to his son? Or would he have kept the map forever, a relic to be preserved, but not used? There's also the question of whether anyone could create a new Marauders map. The spells used weren't unique, theoretically. Any sufficiently skilled wizard with adequate knowledge could try to replicate what the Marauders did. But it would take years of work, deep understanding of Hogwarts, and access to advanced magic. And would it be created with the same love and care and spirit that the Marauders put into the original? Probably not. That's the difference between an artifact created by necessity and friendship and one created as a mere copy. The legacy of the Marauders' map extends beyond its functionality. It represents a form of resistance against oppressive authority. The Marauders created the map partially to subvert rules they thought were unfair. Fred and George used it for the same purpose. Harry used it to survive against authorities who either wanted to control him or kill him. Neville used it during the 7th year to protect students from the Carrows. The map has always been on the side of freedom against oppression, of the individual against the system. But the map also represents the dangers of unchecked surveillance. In an era where privacy is constantly under threat, the Marauders' map serves as a warning. What would happen if such technology existed in the real world? If governments or corporations could track every movement of every person? The map works in Harry Potter because it's in the hands of essentially good people, but in the wrong hands it would be a tool of tyranny. The Marauders could never have predicted the full impact of their creation. They were just 4 boys who wanted to explore their school and help their friend during his painful transformations. They didn't know that their map would one day help expose a traitor, protect one of their sons, facilitate resistance against Death Eater occupation, and play a role in defeating the most powerful dark wizard of all time. And now we come to the end of the story of the Marauder's map, but in a way, its story never really ends. The map exists somewhere, stored away or perhaps still being used. As long as Hogwarts remains standing, as long as people walk through its corridors, the map could theoretically continue showing their movements. It's a permanent link between past and present, between the Marauders and everyone who came after. The true magic of the map isn't in the complex spells or the enchanted parchment. It's in what it represents. Friendship so deep that boys risked everything for it, creativity applied to help someone in need, rebellion against unjust rules, and the legacy that good people leave behind, even when their lives end in tragedy. So the next time you think about the Marauder's map, remember it's not just about a piece of magical parchment, it's about 4 boys called Prongs, Padfoot, Moony and Wormtail, who created something that would outlive them. It's about how our creations carry parts of us forward in time. It's about how even mischief can have profound meaning. And it's about how the best of humanity, or wizardry, comes when we use our talents not for ourselves, but for those we love. This is the complete story of the Marauder's map, from its creation in the 70s to its role in Voldemort's defeat and beyond. A story of friendship, betrayal, ingenuity, and the enduring power of creations made with love and purpose. I solemnly swear I told the truth, and now mischief managed. If you enjoyed this deep story about one of Harry Potter's most iconic objects, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to the channel for more magical content.